Thank you very much, John. And we still have plenty of questions. We won't be able to address all of them, so we will do some of them, and I'm sorry for those who won't have their answer to their question. So yeah, we've heard here that we can use, of course, the CO2 and the decay method to estimate the air change rate. So you've got plenty of questions on how to do it. For example, in a naturally ventilated bedroom via the CO2 decay, what do you suggest as a minimum CO2 decay time after it started decaying in order to be to estimate?
Yes,
air change rate?
I showed that graph. It takes. It depends on whether you close your door or leave it open to everybody else in the house, to be absolutely honest. No, generally, people close their door in their bedroom. And that because you now have a closed space, it doesn't actually stay. It's hard to, you'll continue to get the CO2 increasing all night long. And it'll get to 3,000 to 4,000 ppm in a small bedroom with 2 people. So it's very hard to do steady state in a bedroom because you close the bedroom door, and if you open a window, then you can do it. Otherwise, if you do that, then give yourself 2 to 3 hours.
Okay, 2 to 3 hours. So if you don't consider the time, but the decay, is it enough to consider, for example, from 2000 to 1000 ppm for estimating the air change rate, instead of considering the time, considering the
I
decay?
interpret that as saying, what happens if more people come into the room during that period? Is that correct? I'm trying to understand I'm trying to interpret that correctly.
Time was not enough.
You're not decaying back down. Yes, it's fine. If the baseline was 1,000, you don't need to go down to 425. You can go down to whatever is your baseline. You go down to, it is always difficult when calculating a decay rate. It's a standard exponential decay. Nothing funny about it. It's just as you'd expect in just simple diffusion. And the problem always is that you have to estimate the final point. And in estimating a final point, you need to take a guess. And you're going to have to guess the final point, which will be at an infinite time. And it generally becomes iterative. You do a few iterations until you can fit the curve well. If you fit the curve well, you've estimated a good baseline. And when it doesn't, you haven't.
Okay. We will take some other questions. So, how's the recommendation for sample time and measuring duration in ISO 16000-26? I think generally applicable. I assume sampling time and duration depend on room conditions. Example, air change rate, defined duration, and still steady state is reached.
Yeah, you can cover a lot of things by saying it's guidance. So you can have, and I wouldn't mind, Andy, do you feel comfortable with the ISO in terms of ASHRAE and ASTM, in terms of location, etc.?
The ASTM standard actually refers to the ISO limits on location and so on. I think maybe a more detailed test procedure would be helpful, but and ASHRAE doesn't get into that
26
much at all.
Is not specific. It's very generic. It's quite a short standard, and it's quite generic on it. But yes, it's generally. I'd say there's nothing really controversial in those numbers. Bjarne, do you feel you're comfortable with those numbers?
Oh, Bjarne, you're muted, I think.
Short answer, yes.
Okay, that's a good short answer.
Okay, good. So it's now 5:30, so I'm sorry we won't be able to cover all the other questions. Actually, you see, we still have a page for that, but we had very positive feedback in the Q&A. So thank you for that, and thank you for all your questions. And I will leave Andy to tell the closing word.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, John. And before I really say a lot of thank yous, I just want to point out that the CO2 limits in ASHRAE standard 62.1 that we've heard about a couple times today are just for demand controlled ventilation. They're not for assessing indoor air quality. It says that right in the standard. They're linked to the outdoor air ventilation requirements in the standard with some assumptions about the occupants. If you think those CO2 values are too high or too low, you're disagreeing with the ventilation requirements of the standard, which is valid, but I had to say that. So now I feel better. I want to thank all the speakers, the roughly 200 attendees we had today, and remind you that to complete the evaluation form, they're very helpful to AIVC as future webinars are proposed and planned and conducted. So with that, I again, thank you very much. And I think that's it, right, Valerie?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much to all the speakers, and see you at the next AIVC webinar.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Ivan.